So, Roger, I'm going to open the Board of Supervisors meeting Monday, May 23rd, 2016, and we'll start with a pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, the first thing we need to do is adopt the agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Debbie's, Kaitlin going to do the overview.
Tonight we have the last public hearing for our 2017 fiscal year budget. And what I'd like to do is just take a moment and to review the highlights of the budget. And the first item on the agenda is that we established a contingency fund this year, which is a new fund of $266,000. We have a $3,000 increase for a new payroll system. We have the establishment of an IT department and budget to better track IT costs. We have the budget that was requested by the Fire and Rescue as they requested it. We had a reduction of budgets from the Commissioner of Revenue, Board of Assessors, Circuit Court, Combined District Court, Clerk of the Court, Commonwealth Attorney, Sheriff, Refuge Disposal, Maintenance, the Eileen Department, the Health Department, Public Assistance, Planning Commission, and Tourism. The schools requested level funding. The Board of Supervisors reduced their budget by $50,000. There was a request to increase the Director of Elections salary, and those monies are currently in the budget and will be discussed on June the 6th and are not reflected. The money's reflected in the budget, but not necessarily in the salary line, but that will be adjusted accordingly on June the 16th. The regional jail budget has been adjusted from $618,000 to $487,184. The preliminary data came in regarding the assessments. The assessments dropped 0.88%. That equated to a reduction of loss of revenue of $86,443.67. The board agreed to pay for the employees' increase in healthcare cost, which came to $19,557.88. There is a potential cost for state salary increases of $20,026.29. That has not been determined yet. It depends upon the state revenues and what they decide. And that leaves us with a balanced budget and an excess of $32,879.72. The tax rates remain the same from 2016 to 2017, with real estate and mobile homes at 65 cents per 100, real estate fire levy at 5 cents, personal property at $4.25, and personal property fire levy at 20 cents. The only increase was in the motor vehicle license, which went from $20 to $25. And the budget will be reviewed on June the 16th, and adopted. So this is, I said the 16th, didn't I? June the 6th, thank you. That was developed at the Board of Supervisors meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a quick question. Deb, you said on the voter register, are we adding the $1,000 to the salary supplement? Okay. I didn't hear you
That's
say
on
that.
it. I didn't
saw it
go
on the
through
chart,
everything,
but
I just hit the highlights.
Thank
But
you.
yes, that was added.
I'd like to make a correction. You did say the 16th also in the discussion of the voter registration salary, when it should have been the
To the
6th.
6th, yeah. It will all be on the 6th at the Board of Supervisors meeting.
If I can interject while we're there, I see no reason why we couldn't discuss that tonight. This is a public hearing. June 6th is the adoption.
Right.
That'd be fine.
That's the only thing we shouldn't discuss tonight is doing something in Mr. Welch's district while it's going on.
Well, we can discuss it after we'll go ahead and have a public comment period at this point, I think. And so I'll go ahead and open that up. Not many people here, so I guess there's no time limit. If you start repeating yourself, I may make a mention of that.
Who, me?
But with that, I'll go ahead and open the public comment. Just say your name and your district, and I'll go from there. Thank
Page 20, Jackson District. Good evening, gentlemen. Since last I spoke on the subject of the budget, none of you have refuted the issues I raised, except for stating that your support for the community attorney's raised. No one has followed up on Chairman Welch's desire to use my expertise to address the issues I raised. I attended your last budget workshop where you didn't address any of the issues I raised. The current presentation of the budget does not address the issues I raised. So in the interest of saving time, I'd like to resubmit my previous comments into the record. All right, and the clerk, who's not here tonight, has those electronically. Furthermore, I continue to discover apparent funds management issues. Although the county administrator and county treasurer have stated that the fire levy tax revenue is maintained in a separate account, this budget presentation does not clearly show that. It is impossible to determine if all revenue is spent on fire and rescue operations and maintenance as required by Virginia code. Although the county administrator and county treasurer have stated that the EMS cost recovery revenue is maintained in a separate account, again, this budget presentation does not clearly show that. It is impossible to determine if all the revenue is distributed back to the fire and rescue companies as required by Medicaid. On both of these, I want to make a point. I'm not saying it's not taken, it's just a presentation does not come across to the public that is taken care of. I'm sure Debbie and Deborah are exactly right. Per Virginia code, the non-jailable ticket revenue is to be maintained in a separate account for the sheriff to use for courthouse security. That is not reflected in the budget presentation. I believe the money's there, but you can't tell that it's following Virginia code. Per Virginia code, a specific portion of the concealed carry permits fees are to go to the sheriff for compensation for costs for processing. That is not reflected in the budget presentation. On another budget presentation note, the budget does not show how much of each expenditure item is subsidized by federal or state funding. For example, how much of each constitutional officer's salaries comes from the state and how much comes from the county? How much is the county contributing to the sheriff's deputy salaries? You can't tell that. I'm sure Debbie knows. Government. Some have opined about the $50,000 cut from the $12 million school budget. That's 0.4%. Right? Even though the administrative staff has increased while enrollment has decreased. But you've underfunded fire and rescue by $220,000 at a $735,000 need. That's 30%. I heard what Debbie said, that it was per their budget. I don't know who presented the budget. I'm going by what they turned into the fire levy, multiplying it by 2 for a full year. That is 4 times the cut of 1/16 of the requirement. That is before you address the emergent needs of an outdated CAD system, dispatch issues, and the potential for paid staff. Add that to the sheriff's deputy salary problem, and it is clear your budget has serious priority issues. In regards to the county attorney, I continue to find examples of inaccurate, misleading, or poor advice and counsel. The existing EMS cost recovery, not the new one, is in conflict with Medicare Claims Processing Manual, chapters 10, 15, and 4. Right? He instructed the Fire and Rescue Association that they must close their checking account. Under what authority can a county tell a duly formed corporation that is not allowed to have a bank account? I don't get it. He drafted an ordinance without apparent authorization from you that left a volunteer fire company with no legal option to receive revenue earned other than to take the county to court. There is potential nepotism issue if you hire his son-in-law as deputy zoning administrator, particularly without advertising or competing the selection. And I point out that the son-in-law's performance at the recent planning commission meeting clearly demonstrated he is not quite qualified yet. There is a potential conflict of interest issue also with his son-in-law representing the landowner on the zoning issue mentioned above. Who's going to be your representation when it comes to the board on the 6th? I thought attorneys were supposed to keep you out of trouble, not get a raise for creating problems. And this afternoon, on a related note, I was looking at the agenda for the 6th June Board of Supervisors meeting and saw a revised ordinance on farm land preservation. But I did not remember any prior discussion on the matter. I mean, I've been to the last 2, but I hadn't, so I went back and researched. So when, I couldn't find anything. So when was the public discussion of a change in policy? Did the county attorney just decide he needed to change an ordinance and submit it to the board for approval? Who is running the county? The board or the attorney? How do you control the attorney's billable hours? Which brings us back to his raise. I'm aware that you've instituted a more detailed budget process. I commend you for discovering and fixing the social services account. Good thing the jail funding went down, so you had the money to do it with. But as I laid out before, and the items I've mentioned this evening, there is much work to do. Gentlemen, as elected governors of this county, I expect you to address these issues in a timely manner. You instruct the public to address your comments to the board. The public expects the same courtesy and have the board directly answer issues raised, not the administrator, not the county attorney. To date, you have not. I understand the history of how the board advocated its responsibility to the administrator and the attorney, but they are not elected officials, and it is time to right the ship. The backroom deals need to end. Times have changed. You must be a parent. The citizens expect it. Note the video camera. All right? Gentlemen, the county's budget situation is unsustainable. You can't tax your way out of this problem. You are going to have to step up your oversight and make some hard, informed decisions. Please, let's work together to address and resolve these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Denise Chandler, Chairman of Rappahannock County Electoral Board. The Electoral Board came before the Board of Supervisors on May 2nd to ask for additional compensation for the position of Director of Elections, as the Commonwealth has mandated that as of July 1st, 2016, all directors of election be full-time, adding 480 hours to the current position. All positions were made full-time to ensure that all Virginia citizens have equal access to register to vote, obtain absentee ballots and vote absentee, process required candidate forms, obtain proper identification photographs if needed, and so forth. The Electoral Board made the presentation to ask for fair compensation for the Director of Elections regarding the 2 additional full days per week, work that is now required by the Commonwealth. Since that time, we were notified by the Department of Elections that the Commonwealth will be reimbursing each county more than 69% of the Commonwealth's minimum mandated funds that the county is required to assume for the increase in the Director of Elections compensation. The Electoral Board also showed the Board of Supervisors where we were able to redirect at least $20,000 in our Electoral Board's budget to more than compensate the county for what amounts to a total expenditure of $7,447. Yes, that is correct. The Electoral Board has $20,000 in our budget to cover what amounts to a total differential of $7,447 for our employees' compensation. Please note, this request is not a salary increase, but fair and just compensation for the additional two mandated full days work per week. During our past presentation, the Electoral Board also showed the Board of Supervisors that it costs 43% more to live in Rappahannock than in other like-sized counties, so appropriate compensation is necessary. And again, I reiterate, the Electoral Board has the funds to pay our employee properly without an increase in the county's budget. Therefore, we respectfully ask the Board of Supervisors to accept the Electoral Board's proposal of compensation for the new hours required of the Director of Elections to work. Anything less would be a shame. With a contentious presidential election at our doorstep, you, the citizens of Rappahannock County, need a certified and qualified full-time Director of Elections, able to fulfill the duties mandated by the Commonwealth and be properly compensated for the job at hand. Thank you. And I brought the new letter that shows that the Department of Elections has actually raised the amount to be reimbursed to the county with a calculation sheet. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Anybody else? Well,
I have about 3 minutes. I get $100 a month to do this, and my wife says I'm worth every penny of it, so bear with me. Some of this will be repeated, but with a different emphasis, perhaps. Board of Electors is requesting an increase in registrar's compensation of $12,556. This amount is solely to compensate her for the 480 additional hours state law now requires her to work. That comes out to about $26 an hour for the 480 hours. That's less than the $29 an hour she's now making, which she has been making for 4 years and which you have all approved. Now, as was stated, the state will reimburse a portion of the salary, bringing the total cost of the county to $7,447. And it's also been stated, this is more than offset by reductions in the Electoral Board's portion of the budget. It results in no cost to the county, no tax increase. Again, it's important to emphasize that this is not a raise. It's a direct payment for the hours involved in moving to a full-time position from a part-time position. The same as the Commonwealth attorney. So if anybody up and down the street complains that there's a raise and they didn't get one, the same reason can be given for both situations. It's not a raise. Now, it's obvious that there's been some effort involved in trying to question this proposal. I remind the board that they and only they have the right to vote on this. I'm afraid if the board doesn't act tonight, this budget is going to go forward with the present salary in it, and it's not until June 6th that we, if we're lucky, can catch it in time and change it. I'm suggesting that the board do that tonight. We've explained, we've answered every one of your questions. This amount is more than covered in our budget. But what I would like to see, and I respectfully ask you gentlemen if this can't be handled tonight, I would like to see the
draft budget have the right numbers in it, not the wrong numbers. And then I can go on vacation and not have to worry about it. And on June 6th, we can meet again and see that everything is hunky-dory. Now, I think clearly you have the authority to do this. You're the Board of Supervisors. You can vote on anything you want, and I believe you have the right and the power to vote on this tonight. So that's all I'm asking, to straighten out the draft budget so that it has the numbers that we have requested, which are the right numbers. And so we're not in doubt for another several weeks as to what the right number is. So, and one additional thing, if you discuss this tonight, I request respectfully that the board would honor the promise you made at your May 2nd meeting to us that would permit the electoral board to participate in your discussions because we have subject matter expertise. Thank you very much.
You say who you were? You didn't say who you were or what?
My name is Hurley Smith. I'm Hampton District, and I'm Secretary of the Electoral Board. I could give you my card, but I don't have it.
That's okay. And we did it on the record.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to speak. My name is David Connick. I'm from Stonewall District. That's yours. I would like to talk about a couple of things. The first thing I would like to talk about, I haven't heard much about this budget session, and that is whether or not the regional jail is working out the way the Board of Supervisors thought it was going to work out when they authorized it. I have looked at the numbers, and I have to say that I really can't tell. I thought that one of the reasons that we went into the regional jail some years ago when we did it was because it was going to save the county tax dollars and be of a benefit to the county taxpayers. And I don't have the entire history, and I haven't really made a complete and total analysis of the budget figures, but I do know that some time ago the budget for our own jail was somewhere around $1 million, and what's in the budget now is kind of approaching that. And I'm not sure the way it's budgeted. And again, I'm just asking really a question and asking that you look into it a little bit or think about it, maybe not so much for this year, but maybe into next year. And that is, are we really saving anything? We've got transport costs, we've got a lot of inconvenience with that. And I'm not sure where that gets budgeted, the transport part of it. We have to bring the prisoners back here and so forth. Another issue is, lately there's been a lot of talk about generating revenue in county jobs and people in the county giving them employment. And so all the jobs that were lost when the regional jail went in and people that worked basically at the jail and the sheriff's department had to be cut back. Those are people, most of whom lived and worked in Rappahannock County and had to go somewhere else to find employment. So that's another factor, and that also affects the tax base. So I'm just asking that, like I said, I haven't really studied it thoroughly, but just looking at what's in the budget suggests to me that the savings that we were supposed to realize may not have materialized. And I don't know what the opportunities, I know one of the counties, at least I think one of the counties that was originally in the regional jail project, got out. I think there were some cost overruns and delays and so forth. So I've just asked the Board of Supervisors to take a look at that and think about it. Like I said, maybe not for this year, but maybe for ensuing years, and see how that is really working out, because I haven't heard very much public discussion on it. The second thing I want to talk about is the salaries, or the whatever you call it. It's not really a salary. The compensation of primarily the Planning Commission and also the Board of Zoning Appeals. I just heard this gentleman who made a very nice presentation about the electoral board, that he gets $100 a month. And I haven't been on the electoral board. I really don't know what they do. I tend to surmise that the electoral board pretty much meets around the time of the elections, and we'll see, there we go. So I really don't know what I'm talking about, but $100 a month is really good money compared to what the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals get, which I know our salary on the Board of Zoning Appeals is $35. And believe me, I'm not doing it for the money. As I used to joke, when those of you who recall Dave Fannin was on the Planning Commission and got a lot of flack and everything about the positions he took on the Planning Commission. There were some people that said, you know, it was time to get rid of Dave Fannin, and I think I wrote a letter to the editor and said, you know, you really ought to think about it because Dave Fannin needs the money, that's why he's on there. And I'm not sure what the compensation of the board is. I know it's a certain amount per meeting. I think you get also now other benefits. You get a health benefits. The school board gets whatever they get, and their, I understand, and their budget is health benefits. And when you look at the Planning Commission, which is really a key group of people that are responsible for the way Rappahannock is and preserving Rappahannock and making it an attractive and harmonious community that people want to come to and so forth, that is directly related to the tax base and everything else. Those guys get $35, I think.
25.
What? 45? Huh?
25.
25? Well, they get even less than us. That's terrible. I mean, if you have, I mean, two of you I know were just at the recent meeting. And there was only 2 or 3 things on it. We talked about, among other things, that they talked about having work sessions to redo the comprehensive plan, which hasn't been looked at since 2004, I think. So it was supposed to be redone in 2009, and here we are in 2016, and it still hadn't been done. But that's a lot of work. It's a lot of homework. If you look in, I mean, if a board member is doing a responsible job, which I think they all do or try to do, they have discussions with people or their constituents in their district. They go out sometimes and make site visits. They come to the meeting, which last time the meeting went over till 10 o'clock. It was a 3-hour meeting or a 2.5-hour meeting. Board of Zoning Appeals, same thing. I mean, there's a lot of homework and a lot of work you've got to do to get prepared for the meeting, and then there's the meeting itself. And I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir because you guys do the same thing. But the money that they get compared to the electoral board and so forth and so on is a pittance. And I'm not doing it for the money, and I'm not asking for myself. I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of things, those positions on the Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission, they play a really critical role in the what kind of community we live in and what kind of community we're going to live in, what way Rappahannock is going to be. And, you know, you're giving, I'm not going to mention any names, but you're giving somebody who also is on the same team and contributes to that a 28% raise. The county administrator is getting a raise. It's built into the budget. And I'm not criticizing anybody, and I'm not campaigning for myself for more money. I'm just saying, I don't think that that money that they get, and no benefits, and mostly non-benefits, they get criticized for what they do, has not been raised.
You're starting to repeat yourself. Dave.
Right. I knew you would tell me that. That's my thing on the show.
In over 30 years.
In over 30 years. Because Dave Fannin, when that all happened, that was in the 1970s or 80s. And it hasn't been adjusted. It hasn't got a cost of living or anything else. And if you want to attract intelligent, responsible, dedicated people to those jobs that are critical to the community, I'm just asking you to think about it. Thank you.
Can I say something to David? May I? Sure. All right, I absolutely agree with you in terms of what people get paid. I do just want to let it be known for the record that the Commonwealth reimburses the county 80%, over 80% of our $100. And we meet much more than you will ever know, and are stuck at horrible, long conferences that we don't want to go to but have to.
Well, I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to criticize you in any way.
No, and I agree with you.
$100 is required by the state.
Let's just direct, I guess, the comments to the board, but it's fair to say that, none of us are doing this for the money.
Right.
And we do have competent people in this county that step up to the plate and do their share to protect their county. And I question that if you double everybody's salary, it's really going to make any difference. It's still going to be a pittance. So, it's always interesting to me that the same people get up and ask us to cut taxes, but then they ask for more money, just to spend more money at the same time, and that's kind of incongruous. But
Yeah, but you got a raise, didn't you?
no,
You got benefits, didn't you?
we have health insurance, and we have $200 a month.
Okay.
So, right,
They're not doing it for the money either.
yeah. Is there any other comments? Okay. I'll shut the public comment period down, and then
Mr. Chairman, can
I would like to ask comments from the board. And if you'd like to go first, Mr. Lizinski, please.
Sure. Don't want to jump across anybody. I just wanted to make a couple of, maybe respond or a couple comments on public comment. I'm your regional jail representative on the board. Obviously the new guy here, so I've only had 2 or 3 meetings there. Ms. Kaiser and I are actually touring the jail facility on Thursday, so hopefully they'll let us out, but they're going to let us in. So I'll take, if it pleases the board, I would be more than happy to take the lead on answering any questions that you might have with respect to both the budget and the realized savings, or lack of realized savings. So I'm your guy, I'm the representative here on the board. Happy to try to answer your questions as I learn the answers. With respect to compensation on the planning commission and the BZA, absolutely agree that the amount of hours being put in with those committees is just doing nothing but increasing. It just seems like the workload is, from what times, short period of time in the last couple of years I've just kind of attended those, it's just seemed like it seems to be trending more and more that way. But I will only say that I think it would be more meaningful if the BZA and the Planning Commission had that conversation as a board and came to the Board of Supervisors and said, as a board, we would really like you to think about this. Nothing, you're just commenting as a private citizen and as a member of the BZA. I get that. I would love to hear if everybody else is in agreement with that. I would welcome it if they were in agreement with that, but I'd just be curious to know if there's a majority that feel that way.
Well, I think I can speak to that and say that nobody does it for the money.
Oh,
But I'm just saying that in the future, and even if you did it after the people who are on it are gone, it's something to think about. I mean, that's a really key
Sure.
thing, and so that's all I'm
I
saying. I'm not trying to
I
speak
agree
for
with
any
you.
of them.
I'm just making a suggestion. This is where I personally come from. Maybe my fellow board members don't feel that way. And then the last thing, Mr. Glennie had a couple of things that really resonated with me, and maybe I'll start at the end and work forward. You are going to have to step up your oversight. And the first couple of points you made, this is word for word, it is impossible to determine if all of the revenue is spent on fire and rescue operations and maintenance as required by Virginia code. That's point 1. Point 2, and again I quote, it is impossible to determine if all the revenue is distributed back to the fire and rescue companies as required by Medicare. We give a lot of money to fire and rescue for a very, very good reason. And not for this budget year, but maybe going forward. I know we audit the companies as part of a routine practice. I'm not sure the audit is perhaps as intense as it should be. Maybe it is, maybe it's perfectly fine. But I agree with Mr. Glennie that a lot of money is going out, and we trust the companies that it's going to the right place. But at the end of the day, I don't know if we know if it goes to a life pack or
something that supports a social function. So, in the spirit of continuing what we've done here this year, which I think everybody has applauded, and go through the budget on a line-by-line basis, maybe we should, again, this is just a comment as food for thought, next year, take a hard look at that area, since it's kind of been brought to our attention that that's an area that we may not have our arms around with respect to determining if all the revenue is in fact spent on fire and rescue operations.
Chairman, if I may, that wasn't the point. The point is the goes-inners and goes-outers on the county books. It's not I'm not addressing the fire company's goes in and goes outs. I'm talking about, you look at your revenue sheet and you see what's coming in from those lines and how does that match to the expenditure side and where the lines connect.
Yeah.
So you have to look at multiple, it's just not clear. I'm not saying it's not right.
Oh,
I'm not saying
either.
it's not there. It's just the presentation leads one to question whether or not you're following those other statutes.
I think we're on the same sheet of music here.
Yeah, but it's not the fire company. It's not all in the fire companies is not going to find that.
Well, we're all doing all we can to keep the fire companies afloat. And we do have a new treasurer, and she's done a lot in terms of making things more clear. Are reported, so that's an ongoing.
I agree that the efforts are extremely valuable.
So we're getting there.
I couldn't even have the comments I had without that information. All right.
Well, if we've underfunded fire and rescue by $220,000 out of $735,000 need, we want to know more about that. And if we can if part of the exercise in figuring out what the future of fire and rescue is to figure out how everybody can be more efficient fiscally, I'm all for that. And again, whether it's companies or association or chiefs or whatever organization may be out there, I just think we as a board, again, next year, since it's been kind of raised here, should really remember that and take that up for, consider that for action. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you want to go,
No, I'm fine.
Mr. Frazier?
Mr. Parrish, I'd like to see Board of Supervisors address this concern with the registered salary increase. And I believe we ought to go ahead and take care of this. They have made a presentation upon presentation. They brought materials. They've discussed hours of operation. If we had done that with the county attorney's 28% increase in pay, I wouldn't be having problems with that right now, probably. But we have never done any of that. But they have done, I think, a pretty fair presentation of the number of hours that should be increased working and where the money's coming from.
So, what is your opinion on
I don't know the exact way that we need to put the numbers in there because I think there's still so much would have to be worked back and forth for benefits or whatever, but I think that we need to address this tonight, put the exact figures in.
Do you want to propose some figures?
Well, for what we have in the red letter, for 12,556 additional compensation, only cost the county 7,447. It's the way that I understand this, and I stand, to be corrected if need be. We need to move some money around from the electoral board's budget and add an additional $7,447 from the county budget, but that may not be accurate. It may be a few dollars more because of benefits. I don't know.
Right. And this is in addition to the $9,000 that we're going to.
Right, I think you're including that $1,000 up here, so that it would be the previous 8 plus 1,000 that we discussed.
Plus 7,000.
Plus 7,000.
May I address the board, because we've got the numbers. As the budget now stands, you've got the registrar's current salary in there at $47,264, or maybe it's a little more than that. The salary was $38,860. What we're asking is to be increased the salary to be increased by $11,960, so that on the budget, the salary would show as $50,820, and the supplement would stay at $9,000. And that would satisfy us beyond belief. And then anything you have to move around in the budget, we've told you those areas that we are willing, to make concessions. But I think from our standpoint, we want the budget to read with those numbers in it, so that the salary and the supplement are numbers that we recognize and agree with. And I think they are the numbers that we've been constantly telling you here that makes sense.
If you choose to do that tonight, do the appropriation for the board meeting on June 6th, and there's money currently in the budget, so that would be an appropriation to move it from the electoral board budget into the registrar's budget in the salary line item. So it doesn't impact the budget per se, because we're not increasing above the dollars that are already in there. It just takes an appropriation to move it. And we could do that and show it in the draft budget, but we also need to do an appropriation for the meeting on June 6th.
So you're saying it might be more appropriate to do it on June 6th?
It doesn't matter, but we just can't show it until that point, and it's a matter of moving the money. But it is moving it from one department to the other, so it does take an appropriation.
Would the board indulge me for another comment? It would help us greatly if the final number that we're talking about is in there now, because there's many a slip between cup and lip. And we would rest mighty fine if that number was agreed to tonight, we saw it in the budget, and then do all the appropriation or misappropriation or whatever you have to do to make it come true. But we just want to see the number. We're very simple people.
I would personally like to have one final sit down with you guys. Because now the latest was that the state of Virginia is decided to increase slightly what they're going to reimburse.
Right.
And I actually called Richmond Bay, and they did not call me back
We have a letter.
all afternoon. Yeah.
We have, you have the letter there, Chris, and
Right.
we have also the figure that you called me about. We put it in there for you.
And I just wanted to also confer with the state on what exactly they expect the individual counties to do. If this all looks fine, and then but I just had that, and I should have done it before today, but I didn't think they would not call me back all afternoon. So.
Wouldn't it be the same as you've been doing in the past? I mean, you know that there is a minimum salary requirement. You know what the figure is. You know that they're giving you back 69.22%. I mean, I would assume that it all gets worked in the same way your budgets have worked in the past.
And in fact, the letter that we had sent to us from, what was her name?
From Clarabelle Wheeler.
Clarabelle Wheeler, who was the vice chair. She specifically stated that, that the supplements are totally up to the county. And, so all I'm suggesting is they're not going to be much help. They're not going to tell you what to do.
Right. Okay.
They're going to tell you what their minimum is,
Right.
and which has always been the case. So I'm not, again, with all due respect, I'm not sure delaying it anymore helps anything. If it turns out that you're dissatisfied with it down the road, you can change it. You are the board of
In a
supervisors.
subsequent year.
No, you can change it before June 6th. All we're saying is we'd like to see the number there, and then we can answer any question you have. And then if you have doubts, you certainly have the right to back that number out if you think that it's not appropriate.
Well, what pleases the board on this?
I mean, I don't have the ability to change it myself. I'm just relying on Ms. Kaiser. How much trouble would it be to do something with that? To take care of it, not the appropriation side of it, but just the line items. Could we do that?
We can change change it to put it on board docs tomorrow, if you approve it tonight.
That'd be satisfactory.
Absolutely. You put those numbers in, you probably never hear from us again.
Peace in our day.
And then say
Peace in our
happy,
day.
but
Why
when we
walk
show up
into
for
that one,
elections. Right.
Yeah.
That he's promised.
Yeah.
It's on tape.
So could we agree on those numbers then? I guess it'd be 50,000, 820 plus the 9,000.
Right.
And plus benefits, as you said.
Right, go ahead.
Well, they all have benefits.
Figure that out after that. That will reduce your budget for the correct number.
Right.
Correct quote.
Right, that's right. And we've offered up those areas, so, she can have at it and move that money around wherever she wants.
Just a consensus, yeah.
Is,
I think we need a vote,
we're going to follow the motion then.
Well, we need to vote.
because you're changing the budget.
If we can, the only thing that we can't do with the budget is raise taxes between now and whenever. That's what we advertise. We advertise the bottom line and the tax rate. Anything else, we can do whatever we need.
That's what you think?
I think it's my third time on the rodeo over here. I'm pretty confident
All
on that.
right, we'll take your word on that. So what we'll do is put it in the board docs, and of course,
It's
it's
all
still,
about
it's still just our
six.
proposed budget.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
just a-
it's still our proposed budget that we're gonna vote on in June.
I mean, if you're looking for consensus, I would support that as well.
I mean, whatever we voted on tonight could be overturned on June 6th, so it's not, it means really,
You
Get a
approve
chance to
it?
do it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
We'll put that in the board docs, and that'll be in the proposed budget.
Okay.
And then, it's looking like that the extra $7,447 will be coming out of the, electoral board's budget,
Exactly.
and it'll be transferred over into the registrar's budget.
Right.
All right. Do you have any further comments, Mr. President?
no, that's just,
I wasn't here, I think the only one that was here when the jail was voted on, David, is, Mr. Frazier here, so he'd remember, but as I remember, I was like, hanging around at that point, and, as I remember, being as this jail was the oldest jail in the state of Virginia, there was some concern that it may be condemned, in which case the county would be responsible for the entire expense of rebuilding the jail. And this opportunity came up to go in with these other counties and have the state of Virginia pay half of the cost.
they do just like the schools, it's half of the agreed to cost, but of course, something happened over there and they built a jail that looks like the high school.
Right, so.
The state didn't agree to that.
Right, so at any rate, the county would not be responsible for the entire cost of the jail, that the state was going to pay a large part of it. And so that's why that board decided to, correct me if I'm wrong, because you were here. I wasn't, but this is what I heard. And furthermore, the cost is predicated on the number of our own prisoners, which was projected to be, I think, 9%. As it turns out, currently, it's 5%. There's only 5% of Rappahannock citizens in that jail. So you know, we're still responsible for the initial cost of building the jail, but in terms of our share of operating costs, it's lower than we expected.
Does that go up and down? I mean, does that get
That
adjusted?
changes. That's based on our population,
Mm.
and now our population is down. And then I do know that part of the profit that jail could potentially make is from renting out cells or beds to other counties, you know, like Fairfax or Arlington, and they pay per bed. And we were expecting, you know, more of that going on, but since some of these marijuana laws have loosened up and all, there's not as big a demand for the beds as was anticipated. So, but at any rate, our population is down, our costs are down, and it's working out, you know, okay so far. And it is a bother that the prisoners are transferred back and forth, and it's also inconvenient when maybe a prisoner decides they want to talk to the Commonwealth attorney, and they're not across the street, you know, and by the time, you know, they get over here, or the Commonwealth attorney gets over there, you know, they may change their mind. I mean, that's kind of an inconvenience, but at any rate, the whole idea, the whole reason was there was a fear that this jail would be condemned. And there was a problem with taking in inmates through an insecure region of the jail. When they would process a prisoner, there was no real way without remodeling the jail to make it completely safe. So that was the problem there. And then the only other thing I want to talk about is I think it's really inappropriate to bring up this nepotism thing, because I know this young man that you're referring to, and he has never showed an interest in this job of working for the county, working for the, I mean, he did apply for your position, I believe, when that came up. But other than that, there's been no interest or no talk of hiring this particular individual. So it's just rumor and hearsay that, you know, that you're putting in print here, and I don't think it's fair to that young man or his father-in-law.
That's not correct.
What's that?
You mentioned his name to me yourself.
My comment to you, I believe, was that we could, we have a problem of the, what I'm saying is, this fellow here never mentioned.
You mentioned him to me by name, and
Right.
and 2 days later, I was talking to Mr.
Right.
Burke about the
Yeah.
problems with the
Yeah.
EMS recovery,
Right.
and he knew about the same situation with the same named individual.
Well, maybe I did mention his name in that I think if we would have a young attorney that would have the dual role of the county attorney and a zoning administrator that would stay with the county all their lives, like Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Luke did, that would be great. And I said and I probably did say there's a young fellow in the county that's an attorney, but he never showed any interest in that job. That I know of, he's never showed any interest in that job. So, at any rate, I don't, you know.
If it's not gonna happen,
Yeah.
that's fine, it's not a problem.
No, and I'm sure that he wouldn't take the job that was offered now, probably with all this. But at any rate.
Great, issue on.
There's no money for the position.
Thank you. Yeah, we're not planning on it right now anyway. It's not in our budget to hire anybody right now, for the time being, so.
Excellent, thank you. You got one thing to address. Cool.
Thank you.
I'd also like to address the jail. The cost to the county, I believe, was 7% of that overall cost. So it was a savings in that respect. And our jail was antiquated, and even though you talked about fear, I think it was a little bit more that they saw the writing on the wall that to bring it up to code would be very expensive. And this was an opportunity. And the state does not provide money to counties that were building one county jail. They're only providing money or assistance to multi-county jails. And when this opportunity came up, it was counties nearby that we already work with, and we thought it was a good opportunity. There is problems with convenience families going to see people in jail now need to go outside the county, travel further, at least for some of us. People up there at Chester Gap are closer probably, but many of us are further away. And Paige, I appreciate all your looking into things. We need people pointing out our shortcomings. We'll never improve if we aren't shown where we need help in improving. So thank you.
I would like to thank all of you too for your time, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Second that.
Give us a raise.
No.
Anybody gets a raise?
No tax
It'll be
increase.
those planning commission members. I didn't realize they were getting $10 more than the planning commission has now.
Be worth it.
Every penny of it. Can I ask one last question?
$10 more?
A month.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you summarize again what we did with healthcare? I know we put another $19,000 or $20,000 toward that. That was to offset the increase in the costs to sheriffs and other county
To the
employees.
employees.
Yeah.
It was a 9.6% overall increase, and the employee only has been paid by the county,
Right.
and they had to pay a family portion, and it was like $19,664, I believe, was the cost for you to pay that 9.6 increase for employee plus one and employee plus family.
Okay. I had a question on that. I'm going to still address it with a constituent, but I thought it'd be good to repeat here.
Well, if there's no more comments or entertaining motion to adjourn.
So,
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.